we clearly have a store of good karma because we were able to have a precious human life. And in this life too, we're creating virtue and dedicating it for good rebirth and liberation and enlightenment. So it's important always to have a balanced mind. We think of the faults of samsara, but we think of the potential we have and the possibility of liberation and awakening. So if we can keep our mind in a balanced way like this, then we can maintain a good practice. If we think too much of the dukkha and samsara, it's not if we think too much of it. If we think about it in the wrong way, then we get full of despair and discouragement and depression. But if we think about it correctly, as the Buddha meant us to think about it, and we see there's a way out of it, then that energizes our mind to act. And in acting, it's very important to accept ourselves and what we're capable of doing, and to know that in the future we will be capable of doing more. But now we are where we're at. And so let's appreciate it. But it's also good to expand our mind and think of what it would be like to be a bodhisattva. To see any sentient being, and the first thought that comes in our mind is the aspiration for full awakening, to be able to really benefit that sentient being. And to imagine what would it be like whenever somebody asked us to do something, to have a mind that said, yes, I'm happy to help. So when we imagine having minds that respond to situations like that, it expands our possibilities and lets us practice having a different attitude. So now let's imagine what it would be like to have the bodhicitta and to be invigorated by that and optimistic because of that. So it's interesting when we think of bodhicitta and the higher steps on the path. So often our first thought is, it's too hard. I can't do it. I'm going to fail. Those are things for really advanced practitioners, not for me. And so we don't even bother imagining being like that. But imagining being like that, we don't have to build a tower like Milarepa did. Yeah, we don't have to unplug drains and, or chop down trees or who knows what. We just need to change our mind. And yet sometimes changing our mind to a different attitude is harder than doing any kind of physical labor. Isn't that amazing? Even on the level of just pretending. Yeah, just pretend you have that attitude. Just pretend that you feel that way. Yeah? It's like we don't even need to move from our seat. And yet it's like, oh, I can't do it. You know? To imagine being generous like a bodhisattva. No. Yeah. Well, you know, when instead of going to no, I can't do it, to remember the story of the lady who couldn't do it, and so the Buddha had her practice handing a carrot from one hand to the other hand. And she practiced generosity like that until at one time she put it in somebody else's hand. And then she went on from there. Yeah? So we should let ourselves imagine being the kind of people we want to be and having the kind of qualities we want to develop. Yeah? It's just like when we were little kids playing dress up. Yeah? You put on your mom's and dad's clothes and you pretend being this and that. And that's how you grow up into an adult. You know, because you played at being one at one time. Okay. So I'm going to visualize myself knowing the answer to these questions that people sent me. But I don't know that I know the answer, so I will do my best. And we can all continue to learn. Okay, so one person wrote in, what is the reasoning that proves that our virtuous and non-virtuous actions result in taking a rebirth, result in the experiences we have in future rebirths, result at habitual actions, result at living in a certain environment? What's the reasoning that proves that? Okay, so these kind of questions that are about karma, yeah. Remember we talked about the evident phenomena, the slightly hidden and the extremely hidden. This kind of thing is extremely hidden. So the kind of reasoning we use for it is the reasoning of authority, scriptural authority. And so we read the scriptures, and if the scriptures are not contradictory from beginning to end, yeah, if the other passages that they say in them are correct, if they teach the basic Buddhist philosophy, then we can rely on those scriptures. So it's not 100% inference. It's called inference by scriptural authority. But to me, it doesn't strike me as being 100% by reasoning. You know, there are these elements of trust, but there are criteria for trusting different scriptures too. It's not just blind faith. But I know what helps me to understand these things is that it just kind of makes sense. You know, if I act like an animal, it makes sense that I would be born as an animal. You know, it just kind of makes sense. I can't give you the logical reasoning, except that it's, you know, kind of the result is similar to the cause. You act like an animal, you're born like an animal. Okay? You act in a particular way to somebody, you lie to people, then people aren't going to believe your word. Or you lie to people and they're going to lie back to you. Yeah. And you have disharmony, speak in a divisive way, then you create a habit to keep doing it. Yeah. If you think in a generous way, you create a habit to do that. Yeah. If you act with generosity, really caring about others, it makes sense that in the future you would receive wealth and that you would be born in a place that is prosperous. Whereas if you're miserly, it kind of makes sense that you would be born in a place where, you have droughts and so on. Not that you would be born in that place, but you would wind up living in a place like that. Okay? So for me, just kind of the obvious similarities between certain virtuous and non-virtuous actions and the 3 or 4 results they bring, there's some connection there. Okay, so that helps me understand that, yeah. And it's basically, our causes bring results. Now, if you don't think that the results have any similarity to the cause, that they're totally discordant, that you can act non-virtuously and there's absolutely no result to it, in this life or in future lives, or maybe you think there might be a result in this life but no result in future lives, then you're really kind of heading down a nihilistic path. And if you don't believe that our non-virtue brings painful results and that our virtue brings feelings of happiness and contentment, then propose another way they ripen. Yeah, if you don't want to say, oh, well, the karma doesn't ripen at all and be a nihilist, then propose another way that they could ripen. That would make sense. Yeah, and give some kind of reasoning that isn't scriptural authority to defend your position. Yeah, so His Holiness, when he talks to scientists, he'll say that they disagree with certain things, and they may say we don't believe in rebirth, but they can't give a reasoning to disprove the existence of rebirth. Yeah. So if we're saying that something the Buddha says doesn't make sense, we should see if we can come up with a proposition that does make sense. Yeah. And then see if we can find some holy beings who agreed with our proposition. Here's one of our friends in Singapore who's been really thinking about emptiness. Very good, really putting it into practice. So she asked, am I correct to say that the 4-point analysis for meditating on emptiness is essentially using dependent arising to find there is the absence of a solid independent I? The examples in your book are based on the I being designated in dependence on the parts or the aggregates, and how it is merely designated by mind. Okay, so those the 4-point analysis is more a dissection why things cannot inherently exist. It does relate to dependence, for example, on parts, for example, the aggregates, because when, after you identify the object to be negated and you realize that you think that there's only 2 possibilities, if the I exists inherently, it either has to be one with the aggregates or separate from the aggregates, there you are analyzing the I in relation to the aggregates. You're finding it can't be inherently the same as the aggregates. It can't be inherently different from the aggregates. Okay? But the I does exist in relation to the aggregates. How does it exist? By being dependently designated in dependence on the aggregates. Okay? But when you're actually doing the 4 points, you're more seeing, you are analyzing it in terms of the aggregates. You're seeing it can't be the same as the aggregates. It can't be different. So it is an analysis of the parts. Yeah. Yeah. And it is an analysis also of the whole basis of designation, because we analyze how the I can't be the same as any particular part, any particular aggregate or part of the aggregate. And it also isn't the same as the collection of the aggregates. Yeah. So it is merely designated upon the collection of the aggregates. Okay, so they go together. Okay, so if I'm right on that, why is dependent on causes and conditions not in the analysis? Because the 4-point analysis isn't taking in all of the reasoning of dependent arising. Dependent arising is actually usually called a separate reason from the 4-point analysis. Okay? When you look at the 4-point analysis, you're usually looking at, like, Nagarjuna's verses in the Karikas, and also chapter 18, I think, in the Karikas, and also in Precious Garland, because there you're saying, is the I the same as the aggregates? Is it different from the aggregates? Does it possess the aggregates? Does it depend on the aggregates? Do the aggregates depend on it? Okay, so it's not specifically bringing in causes and effect. However, you can certainly analyze the I in terms of cause and effect. And I find it very helpful to think, to ask myself, do I feel like I exist because the causes for me exist? Okay, so this is an analysis of cause and effect. Do I feel like I am the effect of causes? Yeah? Do you feel like you're the effect of causes? No, most of us don't. When we think I, it feels like there's just I, and it's there, self-powered. We never think of what caused the I, most of us. Yeah. It's just we take the existence of the I for granted. And the way we think of the I is that it is always there, which means it's independent of causes and conditions, because it's always there. And it's independent of everything. Yeah. So I find it very humbling, and it creates a certain awareness of emptiness to think, I exist only because the causes for me exist. Otherwise, I would not exist. And then I think, well, what about if the causes for me existed, but they were different causes? Would it still be I that exists? Or would it be a different person that exists? If the causes for me existed and became I, yeah, would that I be the same I am now? Well, no, it might be a totally different personality. But on the other hand, it couldn't be totally different because that other I would still be a continuation of whatever previous life I had. It would still be in the same continuation, same mental continuum. Yeah? And then you go, but, I thought I had a permanent personality that was always there, and it was exactly like this. And this is the way I am, and there's no way I could ever be any different. That's how we feel, you know. Like, I can never be different than the way I am. That's why we can't even imagine being a Buddha, because how we think of ourselves right now, we can't imagine thinking differently, being a different person. And yet, when we think about causes and conditions, it's quite obvious that if we depend on causes and conditions, if there were different causes and conditions than the one that produced who I am right now, yeah, I would be a very different person. Then who am I? Which personality am I? Isn't there some core, something that I can rely on that is my character, my personality, the essence of me, that's always going to be like that, even though superficially I change? Yeah, that thought comes in the mind. In other words, can I be permanent and impermanent at the same time? What do you think about that one? That one gonna work? But that's the way we see ourselves sometimes. And then we begin to realize, boy, the whole way I conceive of myself is really off. It's really, it's off. When the Buddha said that we sentient beings were ignorant, he was talking about me. And he's right. I am ignorant. I have all these ideas about how I exist and who I am. And the moment I just examine them for a minute or two, I realize that they're all nuts. Yeah? They're all crazy ideas. When you just, simple things. Can I be permanent and impermanent at the same time? Can I change from being permanent to impermanent and go back and forth and back and forth? Is there any possible way? No, you think about it for, 30 seconds, 1 minute. It's totally impossible. Yeah? If I had different causes, would I be exactly the same person I am now? No. Then who am I if I'm not this person? Because I feel like there's somebody that I am. Well, then what is it? Point to it. I can't. But I know it's there. It's ineffable. That sounds good. Big word, nobody understands. And they talk about emptiness being ineffable. So my thing is ineffable too. Who I am is ineffable, undescribable, inconceivable. That's right. You're a dummy and you can't give it have even a correct conception of how you really exist. Yeah. Have you ever had that experience when you're doing retreat after a session to just say, boy, the Buddha really knew what he was talking about when he said that I was ignorant. Wow, that's really true. And that feeling lasts for 15 minutes. And then we're back to I am whatever our conception of ourself feels like it is. And we defend that conception of ourself. I am a this, I am a that, and do not treat me as a stereotype of this and that. You should treat me the way I think all the categories I belong to should be treated. And you should know that already without me saying anything. Okay. So she's saying also, is it flexible to use other examples on that, on the 4-point analysis? Yeah, so, examine by cause and effect, examine by parts. Really think if I am in the, somehow, related to the aggregates, or I am really something, then find it. Yeah? Is it this aggregate? Is it that aggregate? Am I my body? That one is not too hard to figure out. We're not our body. Except when we're in pain, and then we are our body. So again, we go back and forth between this is my body and I am my body. Yeah. Can you be both? The possessor and the thing that's possessed at the same time? No. But can you go back and forth between being those two? No. But somehow I think I can. Okay? Yeah. So then she asks, okay, about applying emptiness when she's thinking about karma. So she says, I visualize in front of me somebody I dislike. So Joe, we'll call the person Joe. I describe Joe as disgusting, untrustworthy, and so forth. Okay? So then she comes to the conclusion, meeting Joe and my experience of Joe is the karma I have created in my past life. Not exactly. The karma we create, karma is an action. So meeting that person isn't an action you did from a previous life. It also isn't the ripening of the seed of that action. Okay? Now, karma may influence how Joe appears to us. Yeah, there may be some karmic influence there in, whether Joe appears beautiful and attractive or Joe appears untrustworthy or whatever. But often it's not so much the karma as it is our present mental state. That we look at Joe and we come to conclusions about Joe. Yeah. The conclusions may be based on nothing except just looking at the person. or they may be based on a brief interaction we had with the person, or they may be based on a long-term relationship with the person. Okay, but whether you like somebody or don't like somebody, a lot of that has to do with the state of your present mind and with the present situation you are in. Because you may start out, maybe Joe looks like somebody who was mean to you when you were 5 years old. So you associate Joe, the adult, with the 5-year-old bully on the playground. And this feeling of dislike for Joe comes. Okay, that's not due to your karma. Okay, that's due to conceptualization in the mind. Yeah, and confusing one person with another person and jumping to a conclusion. But it's interesting to see that if we meet Joe in a very different situation, he may appear to us to be very kind, very attractive, and we want to get to know them. Have you ever noticed that some people, when we first meet them, we don't have a good impression for them, but when we find out that there's somebody important, then we have a much better impression of them. At least if they're important in the kind of causes that I like. So if this is an important person in acting to stop climate change, then I think, I used to think, who are they? They're nobody. But they're important in acting against climate change. Wow, they look really good now. But then, if I find out that they work for an oil company, then I go, oh, horrible person. I haven't talked to that person. I just find out what their reputation is, and my mind changes about whether I like them or don't like them. Okay, so this is due to our mental factor of inappropriate attention or distorted conceptions. Yeah, and then we just take the ball and run with one conceptualization after another one after another one. Okay. So she says, there's no one to blame, neither should I feel victimized. That is correct, however the situation is. Yeah, even if Joe turns out to be the adult who was once that kid on the playground who beat you up, why blame the present day Joe? It's not the same person. And did the 5-year-old Joe who beat you up, did he really understand what he was doing? Or was he, having a really hard time at home and then taking it out on the playground? Okay. So in any case, why is there somebody to blame? Similarly, why should I feel victimized? Yeah. If somebody is attacking me, that is, has to do with karma. If somebody attacks me, I did an aggressive, injurious act to somebody else in a previous life, and that pain is now coming back to me. Okay, so it has a karmic cause, but it's not only due to karma. It's also due to the present cooperative conditions. Yeah, because again, if I met Joe in a totally different environment under different circumstances, yeah, we would have a very, very different relationship. Don't you think? Can you think about instances in your mind where you've met people and had formed, instant likes or dislikes, and then later met them in a different situation, and you wound up having a very different relationship with them? Yeah? And can you see how our way of thinking about somebody completely, it so changes the way we feel about somebody. Of course, it has to do with their action. Okay. So if somebody says to me, Chodron, you forgot to do this or that. Okay. They just say, you forgot to do this or that, and I was really waiting for it to be done, or I was counting on you, or something like that. Okay, then maybe they first say that, and I think, well, yeah, that's true. I did say I would do it, and I forgot. But then I think about it some more. So that person said that to me. Now, they're out of the picture, okay? They're off in Never Never Land. But first thought is, yeah, I did make a mistake. Then I think about it some more. Actually, I don't know if they really were explicit to me that they wanted me to do that. And now they're calling me out for not doing it, but I don't actually have a clear memory of them telling me to do that. So why are they calling me out? Dislike comes, doesn't it? Okay. Then, still, you haven't seen the person anymore. There's no more factual evidence. Then you start thinking, I've had so many incidences with that person where they've criticized me for not doing something. And it couldn't be that I always am negligent and I always forget. I think this person has it out for me. That's what's behind this constant pattern of them saying the same thing to me. Yeah. They have it out for me. More anger, more resentment. Maybe some vengeance arises in the mind. Okay? What's the cause of the whole change in our mood and the whole change of our perspective of how we see that person? Is it the person's actions? No, they're gone. What's causing that change? My conceptual mind. Yeah? My mind that likes to make me the victim of mean people, because then I have no responsibility. And it's all their fault. Okay? So, this way of thinking, what she's doing, is very good to look and analyze situations like this from multiple perspectives and really see what are the causes of different things. Yeah. Okay. Then she said, if I think of the air that Joe breathes and the air that I breathe, it's basically the same air. And, especially if we're in the same room, we could be breathing the same air. So how really are Joe and I so different if we're getting nourished by the same air? And, if we eat lunch together, we're eating the same food. They just happen to put that part of that piece of broccoli on their plate, but I put another piece on my plate. But we're getting nourished by the same food. Okay? Yeah. And then she comes to the conclusion, all the negative descriptions of the current Joe as being disgusting, untrustworthy, and so forth, are merely posited by my mind due to my mental afflictions. Yeah. So, based on inappropriate attention or distorted conceptions, then the mental afflictions join, rise up. And she said, but not so long, the last sentence I don't understand, but it has something to do with, I can also see the Buddha as having, I also can see Joe as having the Buddha potential. Yeah. The sentence reads, no, so long ago, I see Joe with Buddha qualities. So I'm not sure. Not so long ago, I saw Joe with Buddha qualities. Oh, yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah. And then our mind goes off. We're in a bad mood. So then we interpret everything in a negative way. Yeah, amazing how all those people show up on the day when we're in a bad mood. Isn't that amazing? Haven't you wondered why that always happens? Yeah, they always show up that day. And they always ask me to do something when I'm in a hurry. And they always ask me to do something physically demanding when I don't feel well. Amazing how these things always happen at on those days, isn't it? Yeah? Coincidences. Okay, I better get back to this text. So this text is talking about karma, and we are on idle talk. So, I read a lot about Netflix, but I don't know what Netflix really does. Can somebody tell me what Netflix is? You get movies on it, but what kind of movies? Can you get documentaries? Do you have to pay for it? Oh, you have to pay. Oh, that I don't want to do that. What else? Who started Netflix? This is a business? Yeah? Oh, it's a business. Okay, who started it? Oh, okay. Well, anyway, there's Netflix. Then what else? If you can't get a movie on Netflix, how else can you get it? Yeah, we can talk a long time about that, huh? Yeah. And I know something's going on with TikTok. Yeah? I always thought clocks went tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Then I was reading something like people dance while they say tick-tock, tick-tock. Who dances when they say tick-tock? And now somebody wants to buy TikTok. But isn't TikTok like Happy Birthday? Is Happy Birthday still public domain song? Or you have to pay somebody to get it? What about, is TikTok? Yeah, is that public domain? Didn't you used to say TikTok a lot when you were little? Okay, so idle talk. Yeah? So the basis of an idle talk, we're going through the 4 parts that make it a complete action. The basis is a topic without meaning or importance. How do you spell TikTok anyway? Is it T-I-C or T-I-K? This is very important. Yeah. I might dream about TikTok tonight to make sure I spell it right. Okay, so a topic without meaning or importance. Attitude, 3 points to the attitude. So first is knowing the topic we wish to speak about. Okay, so I can talk about TikTok or Netflix or the latest thing on InfoWars, or the latest thing that came out of the I'm practicing good speech. Okay, so knowing the topic we wish to talk about. Yeah. And then second point, any of the three poisons. So with attachment, we idle talk, flattering somebody, hinting to get somebody something. Yeah, anybody here do that? Flattery, hinting. Yeah. Coercion, putting somebody in the situation where they can't say no. Okay, it's idle talk. So that's done with attachment. We want something from the other person. Anger is angrily wanting to disturb someone. Okay, you're mad at somebody, they're focusing on something, you stomp into the room and you start talking about Meghan and Harry. Yeah. And then ignorance is ignorantly wanting to pass the time. So I'm bored. Let's just go hang out and chit-chat. Okay, so that's the second one, attitude. Action. Here are examples of the action of idle talk. Gossiping. Okay, yeah. So, our neighbor down the road? Do you know that they have a peacock that bites you? You know that, good. I'm glad. Once that peacock followed me, and it jumped on my back a few times. Before it just nipped at my robes, but it jumped on my back. I wonder if that's something that peacocks do because of their genes, or is that learned behavior? I wonder. What do you think? What do mama peacocks teach baby peacocks? Okay, gossiping. Telling stories. Did you hear the latest about you name it? Okay. Joking without a good purpose. So there can be joking with a good purpose, but joking without a good purpose, to make yourself the center of attention, to appear witty, yeah, that's idle talk. Joking with the motivation to insult somebody, that's harsh speech. Mm-hmm. Praying for terrible things to happen, that's gossip. That's idle talk. Wailing. Oh, shucks, why did they put that one in? Wailing. Okay. Yeah, people wail, don't they? People wail. Okay, teaching the Dharma to someone lacking interest or respect. That is idle talk. Yeah, we should not explain the Dharma to somebody who has no interest and who is disrespectful. Yeah, because it just goes in one ear and out the other, and they become unhappier and more critical. Reciting liturgies of other religions for no good reason. Okay. If you're at an interfaith dialogue, you can recite something. I don't recite things. There are passages from liturgy and other religions that I agree with. And if I'm at an interfaith dialogue, I will recite those passages because the values and the meaning are the same as the values and meaning that I hold and respect. If the passages are stating something that I don't believe is correct, then I don't recite it. Okay. Yeah, but sometimes we're in situations where, it kind of brings harmony to join in what other people are doing. Repeating jingles and slogans. Whenever I hear this, I remember when one nun came to participate in EML, and she had done a 3-year retreat, and we asked her to talk about it during one session, and she was saying everything that you learned as a kid, all sorts of absurd things keep coming up in your mind. And then she started singing, the ants go marching 2 by 2. What's the rest of it? Ants go marching 2 by 2, hooray, hurrah, hurrah. I don't know. What happens? What's the next line? Yeah. So you get into that. Yeah. So I always, whenever I think about jingles, I think about her saying that one. Okay. Slogans. I won't give any examples. Yeah. Make America better. Make America peaceful. Make America safe. Make America healthy. Make America kind. Okay, more idle talk. Grumbling. Oh, why did they have to mention that? Grumbling. It's so uplifting to grumble. I mean, when you can grumble and your friend agrees with you, isn't that fulfilling? Don't you feel understood? You're not. Oh, now you're nodding your heads. Yeah. Oh, but grumbling is idle talk. I'm going to grumble about that one. Bickering over meaningless things. Definitely idle talk, especially when other people start it. Or when you're in a situation when you have to listen to other people bicker. Yeah, isn't that nice? Family dinners, your relatives are bickering. You ever have that? Yeah. And it's bickering over meaningless things. And the people have bickered over that same topic multiple times because you've been at multiple family dinners where they've done that. Yeah. And it would be so nice to grumble and tell them that they're having idle talk and creating non-virtue because they're bickering, and wouldn't they just cut it out? And did you hear what they bickered about at the last dinner we had? You can't believe it, these people again. Okay, so I don't have idle talk, but okay. Talking about entertainment, sports, politics, crime, and so forth without a good reason. With a good reason, okay, and there's many good reasons. The only good reason I can think to talk about sports, and there's no men in the room, so I'm safe. Oh, but you're a sports therapist. Okay. What? A sports physical therapist. Yeah, okay, I better not say that. Okay, so talking about entertainment, sports, I mean, People spend hours talking about what happens to a ball. Yeah? I mean, it could be a little ball like this that bounces, or that has kind of bump things on it that old men hit with a stick. Yeah, it could be a weird shaped ball. Yeah, like somebody didn't know how it was supposed to look. Or it could be a white ball that's kind of smooth, or an orange ball that's bigger and rough. Yeah. And they talk for hours about where a ball is and who put the ball there. And they think that that's interesting. Yeah? Amazing. Okay. And people talk about movie stars and famous people. Yeah. So now I'm going to say the only meaningful thing I can think talking about sports is Colin Kaepernick kneeling. Yeah, that I will talk about, and that even didn't involve where the ball was. But, I thought that was something quite meaningful. Mm-hmm. Okay, then the completion is saying the words out loud. It's not necessary that anyone hears or understands. Oh my goodness, what I say to the cat, it's like I'm talking to a baby. I think all of us talk to the kitties that way, don't we? Oh, sweetheart, you want some yums? Is it din-din time? Come here, I'll feed you some yums. Yeah, is your little tummy full? Yeah, stop biting me. Okay, so that is idle talk. But there is some purpose sometimes in this kind of talk. Yeah? Just even with a pet, they know when we talk like that they are loved. Yeah? So if we have a motivation to, show our pets that they're loved, yeah, then maybe that's okay. If you're working in an office, sometimes you need to chit-chat with people, about different topics. Sometimes if we talk about idle talk, we think we always have to be having a Dharma talk with somebody, or talking about some meaningful thing like emptiness, So you're going to go into your workplace to talk about emptiness, and your colleague is going to say, yeah, my wallet is empty. So it doesn't mean that. There are times when we have to chit-chat, when there are times to talk about politics. We are influenced by what goes on in the country, and our religious freedom, our freedom in general, is at stake. So there's a reason to talk about these things. Okay. Talking about sports, I guess if you work with somebody and that's what they like to talk about, but I don't know anything. So, they come in and say, I don't know, there's some guy named Brady. I don't know, does he play basketball or volleyball or golf or football or baseball? Yeah. So, I hear random names kind of, back and forth. Yeah. when I read the headlines that Kobe was killed, it was like, that name sounds familiar. Did I meet him somewhere? No, I didn't meet him. He's a famous basketball star. Oh, is that it? Yeah. Somebody, so you hear a name. Okay, so idle talk. Next one. Now we're moving into, those were the 4 of speech. Now we're moving into the 3 of mind. And remember, the ones of speech don't have to be done verbally. They can be done physically, like writing a message, typing a message, doing it in Morse code or whatever, okay? Now, but the 4 verbal ones all have to be, the 3 mental ones all have to be done mentally. And the question came up, I think, last week about how many non-virtues can you do at one time? And you can also reword it as how many virtues can you do at one time? And the 3 mental ones you have to do. You can't tell somebody else to do it. And, have it, you accumulate the karma yourself. But amongst the 7 physical and verbal ones, you can accumulate all 7 at one time by telling other people to kill, steal, lie, speak divisive words, speak harsh words, speak idle talk, and they all do those actions while you're having unsafe and unkind sex. The sexual one you have to do yourself, okay? The other ones, you accumulate the negativity of telling somebody, if you tell someone else to do it, okay? And the same way, if you encourage people not to do those actions, then you accumulate virtue from that. Okay, so covetousness. So that's wanting stuff, We usually think of it as a big form of attachment, but actually the motivation can be any of the 3 poisons. So I'll speak about that in a minute. Anyway, the basis of covetousness is the possessions or wealth of another person. The worst is desiring offerings made to holy beings and the Sangha. So I already confessed to you how I have covetousness for a set of 21 taras from His Holy. So I won't even say it out loud because that's not who you want to covet stuff from. Okay. So they're the possessions or wealth of somebody else. And the worst is offerings or belongings to holy beings or to the Sangha. Somebody's going to look at those robes and go, I really like that style of robes. I'm a fashion designer. I want to get a set of those and design something like that. Okay, then the attitude. First part is correctly identifying the object. So you covet what you are thinking to covet. Second, it can be motivated by any of the 3 poisons. Okay, so we usually think covetousness is attachment, and probably most of it is due to attachment. But it can also be due to anger. You wish to deprive somebody else of their possessions. You're jealous and angry of somebody, and so you covet their possession so that they will experience pain being deprived of it. Or ignorance. Yeah. You think like Robin Hood. Yeah. I can rob from anybody. Yeah. Whereas it's actually better to ask first before you take it. Okay. And then the desire, the third part of the attitude is the desire to make that object your own. And one time I was talking to Khensa Rinpoche, Khensa Jampa Tekchok, and I don't know why, but he brought this thing up about covetousness. And he was saying, you know, how important it is as monastics when we visit other people, not to look around their rooms and pick up their belongings and say, oh, this is so nice, where did you get it? Oh, this is really beautiful. Yeah? Yeah, how in the world did you come by this? How? You know, and he said, don't be very careful when you visit other people. Don't look at all the artwork and the tchotchkes on their bookshelves and all. And don't pick up the stuff and start asking questions like that. Huh? Okay, then, so the action of covetousness is thinking, I will obtain this, and planning on how to obtain it. Okay, so it's not just a passing thought of I want this, or even a passing thought of it would be nice if somebody gave it to me. You have to actually think, I will do something or try to do something in order to obtain this article. The completion is the determination to obtain the object. So to be complete, 5 factors are necessary. Being very attached to your possessions, wanting to accumulate more, longing to examine and experience the possession of others, thinking that what another person has should be yours, and lacking integrity and not wanting to be free from the faults of covetousness. So it sounds like the mind that's going to the shopping mall. Yeah. I want to ask about that. Isn't, going shopping covetousness? Yeah. Somebody said, well, you are craving the possessions of other people, but they want you to crave that. Yeah. But does that make it any less negative in my mind to crave those possessions? Even if the person wants me to crave them? What about if a person wants to make me jealous? So they put out all sorts of beautiful things or wear nice things. And they want me to covet their their possessions. They want me to be envious. That would still be covetousness. Doesn't matter whether the person wants me to covet or not. Depends on my mind. Okay, but then don't go to an extreme, because sometimes you go shopping because you need something. It's not because you're super attached. You need to buy Q-tips, so you go and buy Q-tips. I was going to say you need to buy toilet paper, so you go and buy it. But in a pandemic, your attitude about TP changes, and it becomes covetousness. I want to go to the store and buy that toilet paper, and I'm going to do it before anybody else can get it. And I'm going to buy enough toilet paper for the next 3 years. Some people do. Yeah. But just you need toilet paper and you go and buy toilet paper. I don't think you're coveting the toilet paper then. Okay. And you? I mean, if somebody came up to you at that time and said, "Can I have a roll?" You would give it to them, too. Yeah. How badly do you need the roll? Yeah. Okay. Then malice. Yeah, that is thinking really, planning to harm somebody. Malice is nasty. Yeah. Malice is really nasty. So the basis is a sentient being. The worst is malice towards holy beings and the Sangha. Okay? So malice is a mental attitude. It's a mental action here. The second point of the attitude, you correctly identify the person you want to hurt. Yeah, so-and-so, they did this to me. I want my revenge. Wouldn't it be nice if I embarrassed them in front of everybody else? Okay, so you identify exactly who it is that you want to hurt. Any of the three poisons. So again, although malice in one way is anger on steroids, it also can be generated by other things. If you're attached to somebody and you want that person's in another relationship, and you want them to like you instead of the person they're in a relationship with, so you think of how to harm their relationship and how to harm the other person that you're jealous of. Okay? It's out of attachment to somebody, but the action is malice. Yeah? Or ignorance. Yeah, you think, yeah, it's good to have malicious thoughts. I need to plan, because some country may attack us, and you want to plan your response or whatever. When there's absolutely no evidence that anybody is going to attack you or hurt you. Okay, the action is thinking. The desire, the third part, the intention, is the wish that someone else suffer and experience problems. And the action is thinking, I will make them suffer. I will get even. They'll have a taste of their own medicine. Yeah, so it's all done mentally. We can spend a whole meditation session on this one. Yeah, just like we can spend a whole meditation session on covetousness. And then the completion of malice is deciding to inflict harm and planning how to do it. To be complete, 5 factors are required. Animosity supported by the strong projection of negative qualities on the cause of the harm, or whoever harmed you. Impatience with the one harming you. Resentment based on distorted attention or the cause of your anger, thinking, how wonderful if this person were harmed or suffered. And lacking integrity and not wanting to be free from the faults of malice. Yeah. Have you ever gotten involved in really cultivating malice for a long period of time? Really gotten into thinking about how you wanted to hurt somebody for what they did? Now you may say, no, I've never done that. But what about you're working on a project with somebody, and somebody says something to you that is interfering with your idea of the project, or they're taking control of the project that you're working on, and they're adding things to it that you don't think are so good. And the person's being bossy to boot. Can you spend a long time thinking about the kind of conversation that you want to have with that person so that they get the idea that they better back off and stop being so bossy and controlling and stop, interfering? Yeah? You, in your mind, make up a whole conversation of what I'm going to say, what they're going to say, and if they say this, then I will say that. But if they say the other thing, then I will counter with this. I can spend a long time doing that and not even realize I'm doing it while I'm doing it until something interrupts the flow of it. And then I realize, wow, what have I been using my mind for? What a waste of time putting those kind of seeds in my mind. Okay? Then the 10th one is wrong views. So, wrong views, the basis is something pertaining to the Dharma that is true and exists. The attitude is perceiving something that exists to be non-existent. So, thinking about rebirth and, thinking it doesn't exist. Karma doesn't exist. Buddhahood doesn't exist. Okay. So perceiving something that exists to be non-existent. Okay. And then it can be motivated by any of the 3 poisons. If I don't believe in rebirth, then this group of people that also doesn't believe in rebirth, then I can be friends with that group of people and be a member of their group and belong somewhere. So out of attachment, out of anger. Somebody taught me this. What kind of stupid thing are they teaching me? This is insulting that they expect me to believe in this rubbish, and we get mad at them. Or ignorance, like, what's wrong with animal sacrifice? Yeah, what's wrong with it? Yeah. What's wrong with dropping an A-bomb? Yeah, it stopped World War II sooner, prevented deaths. It was virtuous. Well, that's something that exists, the non-virtue of that action, thinking that it's not, that it doesn't exist. That action was virtuous. Okay. Then the action itself is adopting wrong views. So it has 4 types. Disparaging causes. So, for example, thinking virtuous and non-virtuous behavior don't exist. Yeah, there's no such thing. Disparaging effects. Thinking that the results of this behavior doesn't exist, or the results don't exist. Yeah. Okay. Disparaging activities concerning karmic seeds, rebirth, and taking spontaneous rebirth. So negating that any of those things are possible. And disparaging existent phenomena. So thinking Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Arhats, and so forth do not exist. Okay? So those are 4 kinds of wrong view. So this is the action, the pathway, the karmic action of wrong views to disparage something that exists. And here it's talking about something important. It's not, like your keys are in the drawer. No, they don't exist in the drawer. We're not talking about that. Okay, it's something important. So the action that is one of the 10 non-virtues is disparaging something that exists by saying it doesn't exist. That is basically the same as the mental factor of wrong views. But some people say that the mental factor of wrong views can also include asserting something that does not exist to exist. Okay, like asserting a creator, an independent creator, asserting some kind of primal substance out of which everything is created. So wrong views, usually, whether it's the action or the mental factor, refers to denying something that does exist. But the mental factor can, sometimes people say, can include, it is a bit broader because it can include asserting the existence of things that don't exist. Okay, then the completion of the action is deciding your wrong view is definitely correct. Why? Because I think it. Yeah, and this must have 5 factors. So confusion that doesn't understand phenomena, an argumentative attitude delighting in disparagement. Yeah, so you're really kind of pleased with yourself for proving this, thinking you can prove something wrong. A stubborn attitude due to reflecting on incorrect teachings, denying that the 3 jewels or karma and its effects exist, and lacking integrity and not wanting to be free from the faults of wrong views. Okay, so there are many other wrong views, but these are the worst because they undermine our roots of virtue and encourage us to do whatever we like without considering the destructive effects. Okay, this is a good point to stop if there's questions or comments.
From Jolene in Singapore. So discussing political policies or ideas, we have sometimes started in a good way, but later it becomes repeating ourselves to get others to agree with us, which is attachment. Is that idle talk?
When you're talking about it at the beginning for a meaningful purpose, to come up with some kind of good policy or whatever, that's definitely not idle talk. If afterwards you need to explain more points of the argument so that somebody will understand because maybe somebody misinterpreted and that's why they don't agree, so trying to clarify what the meaning of the point or the meaning of the conversation was, that's not idle talk. Yeah. If you're kind of full of yourself and it's like, I have the best thing and everybody else has got to believe it, then, and you go on and on and on ad nauseum, that will become idle talk.
Cheryl is asking, I'm wondering why wailing in general would be idle talk. It seems like sometimes wailing serves the purpose of letting go of grief, and in some cultures I've heard of group wailing.
Yes. Perhaps, this one is culturally influenced. It could be. Yeah. Or perhaps it's kind of wanting to make people think about why they are wailing. True, it's true. Sometimes wailing releases tension. Yeah. Sometimes wailing can go to an extreme. Yeah. Where it's not just appropriate grief, it's become a big production to get attention. Or it's become a big production so that you can feel sorry for yourself. Yeah. So it could be something like that.
And also a few questions are back and forth here about how...
let me add one more thing. I know in some cultures, what is it? Is it Italian culture? Or Chinese culture, sometimes you hire people to wail at a funeral. Chinese culture. Yeah. 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 So the whole family has to wail. Otherwise, you get criticized because you're unfilial. You don't care about your family. And you can hire people to wail. The Irish do that too? Yeah, because the more people wail, the more important that person must have been. Yeah. I wonder if that's wrong livelihood. If somebody hires you to wail, it's kind of lying, isn't it? Yeah. So it may have something to do with that. Okay.
So people were asking whether, from the shop owner's side, if they're trying to show off all the goods that they're trying to sell, is that from their side, is that coveting?
No, because coveting, you have to covet a possession that doesn't belong to you. The shop owns those possessions.
And then someone suggested that if the seller is coveting the money of the buyer-to-be, would that be?
Oh, well, that might just be, yeah. And especially where if you can bargain and get the person to think that it's worth more than it is. So a lot of these kinds of questions you're asking me, but I think you will develop your wisdom more if you discuss these things amongst yourself. And why would wailing be idle talk? And why wouldn't it? And what exactly is it really coveting if the store owners want you to buy it? Yeah? Or is it being a good citizen because you're helping the economy? Okay? So I think it's good, don't just ask me all these questions. Discuss amongst yourself and really look at all the different kind of motivations that could lie behind an action.
We have one question about the emptiness talk that you gave, and I also have a question around that in terms of we talk about how it's important for everyone to become a Buddha because they have different karmic connections with different people. And thinking about, in my own experience, how when I meet someone, I can be very drawn to them or not. And
when you what?
Meet particular people, I can be particularly drawn to them or not. And I thought that there was karma involved in that, or with the Buddhas, they have different karmic connections with people.
Oh, yeah, the Buddha has karma connections with people.
So I was confused about when you say that when you meet someone, or that meeting someone at a particular time or place that's not due to karma?
That might be due to karma. I didn't say that none of our feelings about other people are due to karma, and I didn't say that meeting particular people is not due to karma. Yeah, what I was talking about was giving examples of how we conceptualize things based on no evidence. Okay, that's what the discussion was about. Okay, so, and that goes for seeing somebody, and I gave the example of they look like somebody else that I knew 20 years ago who was nasty to me, and then you confuse the people and then you don't like them. That's not karma. That's due to our crazy mind. Okay? But there certainly are karmic connections between people. Yeah. But how those develop and what they are, it's really difficult to tell. Yeah? Okay?
And then Jolene has another question around the emptiness. She says, when we meditate on the aggregates, followed by who am I, after sometimes you have no answer and you become blank, what should we do next?
And you have an answer and?
Sometimes you have no answer to the question, who am I, and you become kind of blank.
Yeah.
So what do we do next? Do we investigate different parts of the body again?
Or you can just sit there and say, oh, I'm not my body. That's if you're examining your physical aggregate to see if you're aggregate. And you search the whole body, and I'm none of it. And then, oh, I'm not my body. And then you can think about, what does that mean? To not be my body, then how is that going to affect how I see myself and how I see my body?
I just wanted to say, I think the Singaporeans should have a discussion group on shopping.
Yes.
As a national obsession. But you made me think that I need to really purify bargaining as well, because that's part of the whole enterprise. And I wasn't good at it, but it was like you want to get a good deal. And the whole motivation behind that is so unpleasant.
Yeah.
It's interesting that covetousness in this text, the teachings just specifically says the possessions of others.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, being raised a Catholic, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. And so it doesn't include here coveting another person. It was just interesting.
It couldn't mean coveting another person.
Okay.
Yeah. It says a possession. Aren't wives possessions?
That's a topic we're not going to go into right now.
So it could mean, the object of whatever. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? You look like you're stewing on something.
Oh, it might be one of the weird questions that I do, but I'm still puzzling that the mental ones are mental pathways of action. They are not mental factors, but, right? And then how can something like covetousness actually be also accompanied by or with any other kind of mental factor?
If you look at the chart on 247, the three mental non-virtues, they're not karma, they are a karmic path, and they are an affliction.
Right. They are an affliction. So what I'm puzzling with is then how can they also be motivated, or how can another affliction be a part of?
Because you start out,
attitude of
you start out, well, just look at your own mind. Yeah. You're mad at somebody, you start out mad at somebody, and then I want to take their, whatever. And you covet their thing. So it starts out, it's motivated by by the anger. But then the thought develops as a thought of coveting. Okay? Anything?